Okay, this is a slightly different kind of episode of Looking for Gold in Northern California. This is the road over Sweetwater Creek, and that's what I'll be exploring today. The road is the Salmon Falls Bridge Road, so this is just about 2 miles from the Salmon Fall Bridge that's covered on another episode. Up to the top you'll see that hill. That's the very end of the hill called Flagstaff, and it dwindles down to nothing right where it forms Sweetwater Creek's southern bank. The entrance to Sweetwater Creek is a small parking lot. It's always filled during the weekend. A lot of mountain bikers come down here, and we'll be heading down that trail. The interesting part of this, Sweetwater Creek was a gold-bearing creek in the day, and also this leads into a little peninsula that sticks out into Folsom Lake, where the town of Salmon Falls was located. And it was a typical kind of a gold rush town, existed for 5 to 10 years. Then when the gold went away, so did most of Salmon Falls. There are still some remains around, and then there's an old bridge that is now mostly underwater because of the building of the dam. Very easy access to this. Again, this El Dorado Hills Boulevard comes off of Highway 50 and turns into Salmon Falls Road. Let's go for a walk. I'm about 100 yards down that first road we saw, and there's a little seasonal creek here which crosses the pathway and heads off to Sweetwater Creek. It might be interesting to pan some of this out or high bank it, but I just love this shot because about half of the vegetation you see is poison oak. And so this would be one of the places you do once and you would never do it again. About that same spot as the poison oak was, there's a bifurcation. I will take the low road and later take the high road. Taking that lower fork, you come out of the little scrub oak forest, very pleasant and shady, and you can see this flattens out and is a very open straight path. I imagine, but I'm not certain, that that darkish brown directly in the middle of the field of view is a sign of the high water mark. That's part of Folsom Lake, which is very low at this point. Again, an historic note, you see I'm on that same path and I'm looking towards Sweetwater Creek, which we haven't actually seen yet, but see the rippling piles of dredgings, the dreaded dredgings. And as you look over there, the grassy knolls among those trees, that's all Natomas Corporation dredging. So there's been a dredge ship up here, probably in the 1880s, which probably sucked all of poor little Sweetwater Creek up and dumped the bottom off to the side here. So we will find what kind of gold? That's right, not very much. I'm about a quarter mile, maybe a third of a mile along that path, looking down this dry wash. About the end of the vision field here in this dry wash is the pathway that we were on earlier. This is another shot of Flagstaff, the big hill that kind of marks the area. This is a dry wash, an arroyo seco, as they say around here. Obviously a seasonal creek, fairly wide, got some big rocks in it. They're mostly at the bottom, and you can see the eroded bank there. I imagine this is one of these places that has a real gully wash of water that comes down it, and then it dries up to nothing. So probably in the winter I will be back here when there's water to see if this trails any gold off of that long view of Flagstaff on up into the mother lode. Panning down the dry wash, you can see what is left of Sweetwater Creek, which is a couple of willow trees and really no water here in July of 2014. Again, this is probably something that is more productive in springtime when there's water to work the area. Let's go see what's up ahead. There, my friends, in this July of 2014 is Sweetwater Creek, which is sort of a puddle, but you can see it runs through here. It has discarded tires and everything, so it's a real creek. So the advantage here is there's a little bit of water. I could potentially try to work down to bedrock or something like that. I'm not sure if it's worth the effort. I may try in a little bit. Otherwise, it's probably better again to do when there's some running water. Now I'm about a half a mile from where we started, in the stream bed, and you can see the characteristic V there of somebody having set up a dam to help his sluice. So obviously this area has been worked, but no running water makes it harder. I'm about a mile into this, and this is where Sweetwater Creek, you can see, is heading into the lake. The shoreline up near those oaks going up that hill show the high water mark of Folsom Lake, and there's a little bit of blue over there. Naturally, at the end of the lake, it has a little bit of stagnation before it hits the water. And interestingly, here's something to keep in mind. This is a nice outcropping of bedrock just before you get to the lake. It probably would be worth working, except it is what we call in biology eutrophied. That means it's gross and yucky and full of algae, which is growing in the stagnant water, aided by all the fertilizers and stuff that are running downstream. So I'm just not brave enough to climb into that. But I imagine, 2 months ago, maybe in April, May, you could have been here with some running water, and it might have been a very pleasant day. Now here's something interesting. I'm right at the end of Sweetwater Creek as it's heading out into the lake. Water's very low, but there's this very interesting wall structure here that was built obviously many, many years ago. They didn't use rebar. There's actually cord in it instead of rebar. So this is probably built, I don't know, 100 years ago. And it's built into the bedrock, and someone channeled the bedrock here. And that probably was where there was a gate. So this was some water control mechanism. Maybe there was a mill here or something, one of the grist mills for gold, who knows. And look at all this beautiful bedrock that's exposed here on Sweetwater Creek. This is, of course, the holy grail of gold panning is bedrock, because gold stops at bedrock. So any gold that ran over here last year is likely to be stuck in cracks down there. It helps to have water to process it, and like I pointed out earlier, though the water itself is clear, the stuff it's running through makes this kind of yucky, but still not an impossibility. That channel is intriguing, because if there were a place on Earth that gold would drop out, it would really be in that channel. But I'm not the adventurous sort to get to the bottom of it. But I think you could spend quite a bit of time at this location just sniping for gold and then panning it out in the somewhat running water. So, looking down here at Sweetwater Creek, which is not a creek now, but all dried up, what's the final verdict? Well, hard to say. I dug in several spots and was able to pan them out and found a whole bunch of black sand, but no gold. Usually there's a sort of a ratio that I anticipate between black sand and gold, and I sure had a lot of the black stuff and none of the yellow. I also got out my super duper vacuum and went and sniped the rocks that were exposed, and I found one tiny piece of gold, one tiny little fleck. So was it worth it? Will I be back? Well, I'll probably be back when the water's running just to see what happens. And it's also very close to where I live. Otherwise, I don't know if there's anything to be gained by going to Sweetwater Creek. Well, otherwise, you guys take it easy, and I'll keep exploring for you.